Hello, test. Okay. Hi, I'm Michelle Rogers, CIO with Exeter Finance. Been there about 4.5 years, and I'm so happy to be with all of you tonight. It's great to see some familiar faces like out in the crowd that I haven't seen since pre-pandemic. And then also just want to thank again, thanks to Robin. Yep. Can you hear me now? Okay. Many thanks to Robin for putting this together. I think we have some great topics to talk about the panel tonight. And then also thank you again to our sponsors, because you are part of the reason that we are here as well. So I'm going to give the panel an opportunity to introduce themselves. And if you wouldn't mind, why don't you give us a little tidbit about yourself, maybe where you think you've been most helpful to your team this year?
Hello, my name is Mike Moderator, work with Mr. Cooper, and lead the identity practice. And I guess one of the places I've been most useful is trying to help the rest of the organization correlate what their products do best and how to apply them to all the people they're trying to reach, whether they're trying to reach people in a specific department, people in a specific role.
Eat the mic.
Eat the mic. All right, sorry. And basically just trying to partner with all the different business units and different departments and try to help them do what they do best.
All right, my name is Rick Velasquez. I'm with Texas Capital Bank, the Director of Cyber Defense. I guess some of the things that kind of help the business with is, aside from threat detection incident response, we also built out from the scratch this year a cyber threat intelligence team and also an insider threat team. And as part of the cyber threat intelligence team, have kind of expanded that with threat intelligence briefs, taking in requests for information from our fraud team, and just a lot of partnering across the bank with that. So it's been really good.
Hi, my name is Robin Collier. Now, I'm Mike Santimaw. I'm the Chief Digital Officer for Bogue Global. It's a $3.5 billion logistics 3PL service located here in Dallas. Recent transplant into the Bogue Global organization. Previous to that, I was with Reconcile, and that's where my success story, or my one to grow on, is going to come from. Charles knows a little bit of the story. So I think a little bit of my secret sauce is really investing in people, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of as far as my leadership skills. So as you think about my journey through Reconcile, it was all about the people, and it was all about how we can make them better, how we can invest in them inside and outside the walls of Reconcile. But what I'm really proud of that became of that is, and I didn't do this, it's all of them, is we led an incredible digital transformation and some screeching things. We led an incredible digital transformation that led through our data center migration, a complete point of sale system rewrite. I mean, Charles saw a lot of this. I keep pointing at Charles, but you know, I'm extremely proud of it. You know, it happened in less than a year, and it all happened at the heels of these wonderful, wonderful people. So that's my success story.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward. We have some feedback. This Mike. Looking forward to getting into our discussion, but before we do that, I have to echo like what you said. Where I'm most impactful, it's all about the people. And I think if you take care of your people and you invest in them and help them grow, the rest will take care of itself. So great. So we are going to encourage you as we get into these questions, as the panel, starts to ask them and discuss them. If you have questions, let's go ahead and get them as we talk. We want to make this interactive. So we're going to kick it off with the first question. Is just given the increase in security and frequency of cyber attacks, if you haven't experienced that, you are extremely lucky. Across the globe, across all industries, it is non-discriminatory. What are you or your companies doing to improve the security posture and regarding, just data protection and cybersecurity, or you can speak to another pillar in that area? Okay. So that's fine. I will eat it. The microphone. So, Mike, you want to kick us off?
Do I need to hold the mic like a rapper, or?
Yes.
There we go. So again, full disclosure, I'm a little over 60 days into Mode Global, but I think it's pretty good, the things we're doing so far. When I think about, the journey that I walked into, it was a bit of disjointed. How are we looking at our security practice? How are we really integrating the business into some of these decisions that we're making? How are we looking at the interactions? I was completely inspired by Human Spiel, wherever you're at, because that's the journey we're on. What does good really look like? What, from a behavioral perspective, what are we really doing? How are we interacting with our customers? How are our employees internally and externally? We're an agent-based business. How are they using our technology? We're modeling around that. The days of just putting standard security controls on top of your technology, the standard approaches, they're just not working anymore. The criminals are much smarter than we have ever been. So it's about, what good looks like. For our business, we have different bid boards where, you bid on, a lane for a mode of transportation or whatever it may be. And you can really drive great analytics off of that. And that's been a bit of our starting point. So we know a little bit of secret sauce here for a mode, but we know when folks are going to execute a load by pricing modeling. We know by time of day. We have all this rich data. So when I think about our journey, it's all about those behavioral analytics.
All right. I guess the thing at Texas Capital that we've done is over the past year, there's just been a lot of growth. We've had new leadership come in. We've had expansion of the InfoSec program in the last year, going from about 20 to 25 people to close to 85. That also means a lot of new leadership, building out structure, and then having a lot of alignment between teams because everybody brings in different experiences of what they knew their normal to be. And so along with a heavy emphasis on getting further in front of things from a security architect standpoint for like build permits, operate permits, and getting engaged in that area, there's been a lot of emphasis on finding, the identify portion of it. We have a few people as part of a threat emulation or red team. And as they are, searching for different things, they find things. Vulnerability team finds things. My team, as part of incident response, kind of handles a lot of remediation and then building out the incident response program. What was key in how that a lot of that ties together with new leadership also is aligning on what is a finding that would raise to the level of a cyber incident response lead facilitating and urgently getting that remediated. So as part of having to build out that formal program, we kind of built out a severity matrix of findings, and then is it publicly accessible? Is the attack vector low or is it complex? And so based on a finding, then there's a rating that goes next to that, and that determines whether it goes to our team to help escalate the remediation of it. And the same thing with a security incident, right? Does it meet the definition of a security incident? And then we assign a severity to it and then treat it accordingly. But I would say the biggest thing when you encompass a lot of, there's so much going on, but when you encompass a lot of that together, especially since this spring with a lot of the Russia-Ukraine activity going on, it has been more about the ability to quickly respond, realizing that if we did get attacked by an actual state-sponsored group, it's likely going to be something that we haven't seen before. So how quickly can we detect and respond? And that's been a real heavy focus of everything as well.
Thank you. What we've really done at Mr. Cooper is we've focused more on our end users. Right? We've made a lot of investment on education because ever since the 90s, the easiest way to defeat any security protocol you put, whatever it is by going through the people. Every physical penetration I ever had to do was just a lot easier if I asked nicely, right? So we have heavy engagement where, especially now that we're all virtual, we will have presentations. The InfoSec department will invite the entire employee community to come do a lunch and learn. And we'll say, here's what we're going to talk about. We try to pick topics that people are familiar with, things that they may have experienced. There will always be a presentation on, hey, it's tax time. Here are some examples of texts, emails, things that you're going to get. It's holidays. Here are some examples of things that you are going to get. There will be a presentation on deepfakes this year, telling people how to recognize these things because they are our first line of defense. And we have found that we get a lot more people that are bringing issues to us right off the bat, right? They were the first ones to recognize, hey, this looks fishy. Yeah, excuse the pun there. And they will present these things to us because they are still by far our highest risk. Yes, we are deploying all the AI tools that are out there. We are doing our due diligence. We are doing all these, getting our threat intelligence in gear. But if, the folks just let people in the front door, it's all for naught. So, Cybersecurity Month will be coming up. We will have different presenters.
Thanks for the reminder.
And yeah, I get to present, and we get incredible response. It used to be when we had in-person meetings, they would fill a room much like this, just wall to wall, people just coming in on their lunch breaks or whenever they could. They would actually, the sad thing was that they would actually have to decide on one day, well, which one do I want to go to, right? There's all these good this guy presented last year, he was great. What that guy presented too, he was really good. They did a thing on the dark web, you can't miss that. And so they were really excited. Now that we are all at home, we can break this out. Instead of having to reserve a facility for one day, we can have it over a week or 2 weeks. And more people can come. So that's probably what we've been most successful in doing.
So I love those responses. I mean, what does good look like? How are you protecting yourself? Pivoting the conversation just a little bit. I mean, with the pandemic and obviously all of the cyber security awareness and attacks, we've been thrusted into the role of presenting at the board level. We now have a seat at the table. What are you seeing, with questions that the board is asking, helping them understand what the severity and why it's relevant to them for a cyber incident or a cyber event or a breach?
Well, I mean, right now...
I shouldn't say that word, but...
Yeah. Only legal gets to say that. We, obviously, board members are a lot more savvy these days. We do get the questions, and we have to be prepared to speak in terms of risk, speak their language, if you will. Here's these things. Here's the chance of success. Here's what it could potentially cost us. Here's what remediation looks like, and here's what this means to us as a business. In the event of an incident, obviously we have to speak to that in terms that they can understand what we're doing about it, how we're going to mitigate it, how we're going to prevent it in the future, in very quick, easy to digest terms, because they don't really have time for us to be there, and you don't want to over-alarm them, but you want to make sure they understand what we're doing as a business that makes us vulnerable to this or susceptible to this, and how we're going to fix it. What help do we need from them to educate, from a leadership standpoint, to push down to their pillars, so that they can help us, again, through our education. It all kind of ties back into that to help mitigate some of that.
Sure. Rick?
Yeah, it's a good question. I I think for the most part, it typically starts off with the maturity scale and showing where we're at and where we're going, and some, and just as important is showing where we've come from since the last time. And then the other portion is, identifying, reminding them these are the threats that we face, and the vulnerable areas, and then along with that, what's the highest risk yet, and what are we doing about that? What's the recommendation? Are we postured? Are we to prevent that? Do we have enough mitigations and control? Do we need anything else? How are we executing on what they've given us so far?
Yeah, you mentioned, if you don't mind, if I have a follow-up, just as we were like chit-chatting, can you talk about maybe some of your tabletop exercises and what you're doing with the leadership team?
Yeah, we've been pretty fortunate. I was with an insurance company up in Minnesota for about 10 years before moving down to DFW area 4 years ago. And we were doing incident response tabletop exercises. We didn't quite get to the level of getting before the CEO and the executive team. Then at the organization I came from before joining Texas Capital, we did get an opportunity to get before the executives, and that was annual, once a year. I've been very fortunate with Texas Capital, with new leadership coming on January of 2021, where Rob Holmes has wanted quarterly cyber incident response tabletop exercises at the executive level. And he really asks a lot of questions, challenges his team, corporate communications, legal, data privacy, compliance, all of them. So it's extremely engaging, and it's very fortunate because, if you can get before them once a year, I think you're fortunate and stuff. And that has really helped to build out and kind of exercise that, because, again, the concern is not if and when it'll happen, but how quickly and how efficiently you can respond, not just the cyber incident response team, but depending on how large of a situation it is, how quickly can the crisis management team and the executives and them respond, and do they have an idea? Have they had at least walked through it and talked through it and stuff? So that's been very fortunate.
Thank you.
Just going back to the board topic for just a second, one of the very encouraging things that I think all of you have probably seen this as well, is that the conversation has definitely changed. It's a lot of what you just described, but it's also, a bit more of a respectful conversation. And what I mean by that is, we've all been in a board meeting where, you're kind of bundled into risk and audit, or, whatever the conversation, you're in some kind of committee. What we're seeing now is a shift to a true cyber committee, a true technology committee. FedEx is one of the best in the business as far as like how they design their charter and their rigor around it all. It's a real great example, and I would encourage you all to go download it. It's actually published, and it's a really great charter to think about the way you're interacting with your board and how you're driving the conversation. And when I was at Rent-A-Center, we were on the path to establishing those committees, but at Mowat, I'm happy to say we are establishing those committees. So it's really encouraging, this conversation that we're having now.
That's great. So we're going to move to ESG. How many of you have heard of it or have experience with it?
CSG.
Yeah. So just to level set ESG, I think most of us know, I'm not going to assume all of us know, but it's environmental, social, and governance. And for this question, we're going to continue on cybersecurity for a moment. Cyber falls in that social pillar. So, do you have a framework? Is your company or your investors starting to ask about what are you doing about ESG? How are you reporting? Is there a hesitancy of how much you disclose? Just what are your thoughts? You want to go, Mike? Go back.
So from our perspective, at Mode, it's all about transparency, and I think just the industry we're in, you have to be. The administration's expecting it. TSA came out with a bunch of regulations around transparency actually this month. And it's all about, disclosing, what's going on inside your four walls, what's happening as far as, your rigor with your cybersecurity program. So, we take it very seriously, and it's embedded throughout the organization. it's really everyone's responsibility, not my team's responsibility or my CISO's responsibility. It's all of our responsibility. So, first, do you have a question, Rob?
Robin, do you have a question?
Okay,
We'll keep going.
Let her think about her question.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, so ESG was brought up, but a lot of people think of ESG as like sustainability. So it's like they look at the aspect of cost reduction from an energy perspective, right? And I'm more interested in, I've been hearing, all these rumbles around, even reputation being a big part of people looking at you differently based on your own social investment or how your company relates to ESG. So I'm curious, as the panel, if that's even a rumbling inside your organization.
I'll be real brief and I'll hand it over. But from my perspective, yes, it's huge. When our interactions I was going to go into is not just us. It's all the companies that we interact with. So yeah, absolutely, it's a partnership across industries. It's an expectation as we think about, especially in logistics, the way you're perceived with your partners, with your carriers, and all those things. That's a we goal, and it's definitely something we're hearing a lot of rumblings around, as you put it.
Yeah, it's a good question, and digging into that space, there's different. It goes in different directions, right? So there's a lot where it talks about cyber's in the social space of it, and investors are looking at how many incidents and if you're going to be transparent about that. And then there's also the talk about diversity and things like that. So our organization, we are very involved in the community. You're allowed so many volunteer hours to get involved. They also, in our HR, I think probably about a year ago, they hired someone who's very big on diversity and driving towards that. But also, in relation to the investors and that portion of it, a lot of times they're looking for like some transparency as far as how many incidents you've had, and are you going to be truthful about that, because that involves big time reputation. And so really, the scale at which we grade those is S1 to S5, kind of like think of the ITIL model of, do you have a P1, a P2, same thing, right? So an S1 and S2 is like you're very severe, you may be breaking your IR retainer service, bringing people in, stuff like that. So as far as sharing numbers and different things on like the 3s, 4s, and 5s, that's a little easier. On the S1s and 2s, the only thing I would say is in those conversations, it usually involves coordinating with legal first on what you disclose, and you're usually, in my experience, that's usually going to be a verbal conversation. We're not going to share that out in emails or write-ups and things like that. So it's usually partnered with legal and stuff.
Another question?
Yeah, just to follow up on what you said about the legal, have you ever had to also engage your cyber insurance policy or your basic underwriter so that sometimes it's a precarious, one word could be whether you could file a claim or not, right? So it's like, have you had to do that, or is that something that is being considered?
So that's part of our incident response plan. We do have our cyber insurance carrier and contact information in there. Of course, my team isn't the one that engages them. That would be through our crisis management team as it's communicated up, but have not had to engage them so far on that kind of stuff. What's more common is engaging outside legal counsel, right? So we'll engage legal, and then oftentimes, depending on what it is, if it's suspected to be pretty severe, maybe we don't know it is yet, but if it's suspected to be, then they'll engage outside legal counsel for additional coverage.
I'm going to echo a lot of what he just said. We do tend to partner with legal communications on anything that's going to go out on any of that. We actually would not disclose anything. We obviously respond. We will tell them what we're going to do. But as far as outward communication, that is legal and communications show. Thou shalt not step into their their way, and that's just kind of how that goes. But on the diversity side and all that, social responsibility, that has become huge. Not only from investors asking about what we're doing there, but even from competition for recruiting. Different. Now when you're trying to get employees, they're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them. True that. Right?
Very
they
much
are
so.
looking to see, well, what are you going to do for me? I got on my resume what I'm going to do for you, and that's pretty much in black and white. But what am I getting? Right? Where can I make a difference? And if you don't already have a D&I program and it's not already integrated into your performance metrics and your performance review process, it's probably coming, and it's probably coming pretty soon. Because the last couple of stops I've been at, it's there, and they already have the way they're measuring it. They already what are you doing to the volunteer hours? That's pretty much table stakes these days. How many hours you get to go volunteer out, and are you using them? Right? It's not just so much that we're going to give them to you. Are you taking advantage of these things, and why not? The D&I groups have several opportunities. Take a half day here, half a day there, whatever. And they're definitely keeping an eye on these things. They're definitely holding everyone accountable. And as leaders, it falls to us to help our teams be successful. That's definitely part of their success going forward.
It's very interesting that you mentioned, like in your question, ESG and how it's important for those coming into the workforce. Just a little bit about me. I have adult children that are entering the workforce. It's very important to them, like what industry that they work for, and they actually have to care about the job and what that company is giving back. On the recruiting front and diversity, what have you all seen of incorporating that, whether it's, the generation coming out of college or just the shift in even the older generation? What are you seeing from a recruiting standpoint to change and also retention?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, I'm seeing that more people are doing their homework on us. They're coming in already. You know what? I see what you guys are doing in the community. I see what you guys are doing with these other diversity groups. I see what you guys are doing. Volunteer, because it's on all the social media channels, right? Corpcom isn't going to miss an opportunity to post, hey, look what we're doing, right? So they're already coming to us and saying, hey, we see this and we want to know more about it.
So as a cybersecurity leader, I think I share some concern about trying to get new employees as well as retain them.
Yes.
And so one of the things I would ask is, do you feel that ESG has been a differentiator as we are being interviewed when a candidate comes in? Because the workforce that we're looking at, and we're looking at, maybe the younger people coming in out of college or getting those certifications, extremely important, and they may have 2 to 3 offers.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more about what ESG does to differentiate you from maybe the other 2 offers?
Yeah, just like I said, they're doing their homework, and they will ask, after they find out whether or not they can work from home or not, they will then ask, hey, if I want to go volunteer, is that okay? Right? If I'm part of this diversity group, whether it's LGBT or it's veterans or just whatever, right? Am I going to have a place here, right? And many times they already know, but they want your assurance that not only can they participate, can they get involved, but is this going to be part of a change? They're actually looking to see, are you making a difference? and can they be part of that? Right? They're not satisfied with like, okay, yeah, this looks good on paper, but what are you really accomplishing? Right?
Anyone want to chime in?
Sure, yeah, I'll chime into that. So I've hired, when I started at Texas Capital about 3 years ago, I inherited 3 individuals on my team. That was my team. I have 15 individuals now. So I've hired quite a few just in the last year, at least 10 in the last year. To be honest, though, I haven't had one of them ask much of anything regarding ESG, volunteer hours, anything like that.
Remote work?
Excuse me?
Remote work?
Oh, absolutely. Every single one of them. So that is probably the biggest thing. And I will say this, from doing this similar thing back in 2018, it took me 3 months to build up a team this size. And looking through 35 resumes in that 3 months and a lot of interviews and stuff, it's taken me 8 to 10 months to do the same thing, because you just are not getting the same volume of candidates. With that in mind, until last December, it was fully in the office. And so last December, they allowed, at least for all of IT and InfoSec, not for the leaders, but for the individual contributors, the ones who actually do the work, right? They've allowed 2 days a week work from home. So it's not fully remote, it's not all the time work from home, but at least it's helped us be a little more competitive and actually get a little more candidates to the interview table and stuff like that. I'd say most of mine in this cycle of doing this go around has been through referrals of other team members. You bring a team member on, you get other referrals.
Great. Anyone else?
I'm still in the mic.
Or
No,
should you just hold the mic?
Last
There's
question.
a
I'm allowed
seat
one more
here.
ticket. In seriousness, as remote aside, I'm trying to reconcile the demand for IT security. Just today, there was a Biden really taking an initiative from 500,000 deficit only several months ago to now 700,000 as of last week. So it's, they're saying this. But go to LinkedIn and you start looking at the jobs, 200 applicants, 300 applicants. You made something that really resonated with me. Of those applicants, how many are actually qualified, right? So if I'm looking at a job opening and the dwell time between filling that and the posting and filling is months, and we have hundreds of applicants, how can you say there's a deficit of cybersecurity professionals? And I was wondering if you're feeling that, yeah, a bunch of janitors are applying, but doesn't mean they're qualified.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I would say in my experience, we have not had hundreds and hundreds applying. So there hasn't been a big depth. And of the ones that have applied, you're absolutely right. There's a certain number that weeded out that are not really that qualified. They're not the tier that you're looking for. But I would say the other thing that's shifted since COVID is the whole, and I'm sure all of you have experienced this as well, the whole remote work. Look how many jobs are out there on LinkedIn, any place else, and it starts off with a remote. So that not only puts a strain on the DFW area by candidates that we might have been able to attract. Now they're working for some company out of California or Washington or Oklahoma or wherever they're at, right? Doesn't matter. They're working for that company. You also have, so you have all those other companies from other states that are tapping into the resources that we have here. So it puts an even more challenging strain. Now the upside is we're in the cybersecurity space, so it's great for us as individuals as well. It's just more challenging if we're trying to recruit and retain, because before where HR really should be helping us and level set salaries every 3 to 5 years, now if you're not doing that at least every 12 to 18 months, you're behind the curve and you're going to be losing people.
Thank you.
I feel like I need therapy after listening to all this, because it's exactly the world I've been living in.
I think I do too. I agree, Mike.
Kind of a mixture of all these. It's so competitive, and I'm not getting the hundreds of applicants either. but what I am getting is, you know, high expectations around ESG. You know, what are you doing for the community, things like that. And I am getting a bulk load of I should have said something else, but a bulk load of of folks that are just not qualified. And that's not just in cyber; that's everywhere. You know, just everybody thinks that they can go on and do a cert, and they want that money. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm getting a mixture of all of this.
Okay. Mike, did you have a question? Whoops.
Couple questions.
Am I live? Am I live?
Okay. Yes.
So I'm standing up because I want people to see how old I am. Low hair, no hair, whatever. And Robin cuts me off at, Robin cuts me off at 2 questions, so I'll stay with 2. No more than 2, Robin, I promise. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So the reason I asked is that the previous company I worked for, not the current, thankfully, they embraced a lot of hiring all the new guys. It wasn't quite called CSG back then, but whatever. And the term which HR used was, we want to mollycoddle.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
We want to mollycoddle this new generation guys. And my only question is that, how do you reconcile the needs of the new CSG generation vis-a-vis old timers like us? We were told to get there, do the work, deliver, get it done, dude.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair though. I mean, it really comes down to, like anything, it comes down to supply and demand, right? And we're at a point right now where it's a hot demand career field, especially if you're in security architect or cloud security. That's even hotter, right? It's not unlike the military. I have 24 years in the military, and you know, during the height of everything in Afghanistan and Iraq, the standards to get into the military dropped, right? Because demand, right? So you make exceptions to policies and things like that. When all that stands down and your recruitment is up where it needs to be, then you can kind of reinforce those standards. And I'd say right now we're at the point where, you know, the demand is there. And so as cybersecurity professionals, they have the ability to be a little more picky, which means for me, you know, I've taken where I can some very senior talent, some very seasoned people, and then I've also focused on junior people that have potential that I can mentor up and skill up, and that's kind of the balance that I've taken. Correct. Yep.
Yeah, same here. Just like anything, the folks you want to bring in, the people who can command, are going to drive whatever policy you're going to have to go, right? So you need to coddle the current generation. That's what you got to do, and the rest of us will adjust. At some point, they're not going to be the hot commodity. It'll be the next generation, and then they'll have to adjust because they won't be the ones that we're trying to, you know, keep, retain, whatever. But it's the way it goes, right?
Well, they're kind of responding to his question, and maybe we could let him finish.
No, you're fine.
Okay. So, I've been in security since '97, and I have been hearing about the security staffing shortage and staffing crisis and underemployment since 1997. In fact, when I was brought in, I was a Novell CNE. They brought me in because they were doing Novell, and they trained me in security. My question is, are you, my fellow professionals out there, my CISSPs, doing your service to the profession hours and growing people internally? My firm created what we called a security SWAT team about 2 years ago. We have grabbed our senior technical talent and we have put them through a mentoring program that is composed of other security professionals inside the firm. We are doing weekly and monthly CISSP trainings, so we're training internally and bringing them up to speed. And we've put close to 100 people through that program, and we've created a massive force. Now, we've had some turnover, right? To your point, we're not keeping up with salaries. Those people are going to leave. They're going to seek out better opportunities, higher pay. And you can always walk across the street for 10%. But at the end of the day, you make a great place to work. You invest in your people and you grow them, and you position yourself and your team and your enterprise for a lot greater success in the long run. And I'd encourage anybody out there who is thinking about this to escalate that program internally, that idea. and start developing your people and growing them, because the best security professionals are the ones who will think like an attacker, and only you can teach them that.
That's a very good point. Do we have another question? Why don't you go with, you had a question. You're good?
I had a quick question. Again, creating a distinction between ESG and sustainability, right? ESG is what you're doing now, what shadow you're casting and where you are, versus sustainability was more about what you're planning to do, where you're trying to head, what your carbon footprint is going to be. So there were a lot of talks there, but, obviously following up was a challenge. So with ESG, I have been working with a lot of universities for the past many years on campus programs with UT Austin, recently with Georgia Tech. I see more companies that are going for campus are now talking about what they are doing on the ESG front. So to me, I see two things. One is not just hiring talent, but I also see the millennials, the way they're going to do their business with companies. They're also looking at what ESG profile this company has globally. And to me, the challenge is, there's a huge cultural aspect to ESG based on which country you're operating and where you're trying to hire talent. When I'm trying to find people in US, it's probably not a big deal, but when I'm trying to do the same hiring in Europe, candidates there, ESG is pretty significant. They don't probably call it ESG, but they want to know what profile your corporation is created in that country. So that's a big difference I'm seeing on how ESG is perceived, globally.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a building and it's LEED certified, you publish that, right? You put that on the front door. We have, what do they call that? I guess just LEED certified, and you put what rating you're at, and if you got energy, what's the energy rating they put on all the appliances these days? What's it called? Energy Star. There you go. Thank you very much. All right, exactly. But if you have an Energy Star rating and you put that on your building, because there is a good amount of the population is looking for that sort of thing. They're looking to see, well, are you trying to take care of the planet? Are you being good stewards and all that kind of good stuff? So, yeah, it's anything you can do to gain an advantage, because somebody's looking, guaranteed, right? One of the things I was going to ask is how many folks are trying to find out if you're a great place to work? How many are you putting surveys out to your employees? What do you think it would take for us to be a great place to work? What are some of the things you would like us to do? Because when we went through that exercise, that's how we found out that people wanted to do more volunteering. That's how we found out that they wanted the diversity groups to not just say, hey, I'm on the email list for this diversity group, and we might have a happy hour once a year or whatever, but what are they actually doing to engage with the community? What are they actually doing to further those goals? And along with being able to work from home, they shared all that data with us. So, things to think about.
I mean, just as it relates to surveys, I can tell you, we do pulse surveys on a quarterly basis for the whole entire organization. There is a sentiment for each one of them. Most recently, it's the diversity and inclusion and the employee network groups, but they've gotten into some good topics. And from an IT perspective, I got some really good feedback as to how we could improve and hearing from like the folks. So that's great. Anything else before I move on? Oh, yes, sorry.
So I do a fair amount of work in the community, and I run into job seekers that are coming from a career change or a transition, and there are some incredible diamonds in the rough. I've met people that have 1,000 horsepower brain power, but they stayed home. They stayed home and raised the kids, or they took care of a sick family member, and now when they come back to the workforce, they don't fit the profile that the human resources filter is set up to look for. Oh, they got a CISSP, or they stuck no CISSP. It's out of power. It's out of power. Oh, it's back. This needs new batteries. Where's the side door? Where do we send those candidates so that they still get attention? Because they're incredibly high potential, and the normal apparatus is going to completely screen them from executives.
That's a great question.
That's a very good question. Honestly, it's one of the things that when I'm actively looking for someone, I have to work with my recruiters every day. And initially, I'll subject myself to some of the things that they will filter out, and so that I can go through with them. Okay, I need to see more of this, less of this. And they'll say, well, I filtered this out because they didn't have this, that, or the other. I'm like, no, understand, this is what I'm trying to key in on, right? So focus less on some of these other, quote unquote measurables, and look for language. And a lot of times that helps me get to some folks that they wouldn't have normally surfaced to me.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Which part? Look for language. Look for language that will kind of surface, hey, this came from an analytical mind. This is a problem solver. This is what I need.
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback on that. 100% agree. I think it's important to work with the recruiters and make sure that they know what they're looking for, because, I mean, at some companies, they're trying to fill a lot of jobs, right, in a lot of different areas maybe. But one of the things that I've shared with a couple, even neighbors down the street whose adult kids are maybe they're finishing school or whatever that, and they're interested in getting into cybersecurity, and they're wondering, what's the way that I could get an edge or something? One of the things that I've told them is AWS has a lot of free training out there. If it was me and I was starting over in this space and I really wanted to jump into it, even at a junior level, well, of course at a junior level, if I don't have the experience, I would be going out there and I would be picking up some AWS, and I would be getting some of the AWS badges, and I would have that on my LinkedIn, I would have that on my resume, and I guarantee that's gonna open some doors to get into the cybersecurity space, because there's such a high demand. You may Azure, yeah, any of the cloud environments, GCP, whatever, yep.
That's great. Mike, you have anything to add?
I mean, just a quick one for me. Be very selective about your recruiting folks too. When I think about, the stuff that we've all been through, it's this big pool of 20 recruiters that are throwing a bunch of candidates at you, and you're putting yourself in a bad spot to try to filter through all that. I'd try to develop deep personal relationships with the recruiting folks that we use, and we have a trust, and they start to know me a bit better, and they start to know the folks I'm looking for a bit better. What's important to me, language being one of those. Customer service obviously is always top of the list. I kind of look for the person before I look for the skill set, honestly, in a lot of cases, which kind of sounds weird to say. Oh, he's got. Oh, it most definitely is. I mean, we've all seen it out on Indeed or whatever else. You've got a copy and paste from a job description that came from something else. The 90s. Yeah, the 90s. And a lot of times they leave stuff in from the other companies, which is the strangest thing in the world. There's all kinds of different variations there. Yeah, exactly. But to your point, I mean, I put a lot of effort in up front. I expect my people to do the same thing. We've, at the previous company I was at, we started an IT business operations group that focused on talent and a lot of other things, financial rigor across IT, all kinds of stuff. But we took the talent piece extremely serious, and it was a lot about that. It was getting rid of just the cookie cutter approaches. It was getting rid of the non-personal nature that it takes to attract talent. It was really putting that first.
Thank you. So, but the system that you use to review resumes, put it at the top, right? So how are you able to overcome that to really, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of talent being missed by the bias and the stupid software system, right? So are you discussing this with your HR department? Is there anything going
Amen. Amen. Yeah, I might be fairly unique, but I do a lot of manual things. Like we don't use a lot of those scanners and stuff like that because we really want to get to that top tier talent, and it's not always in-house talent. Like and the reason I think we can take this custom approach is because we're not hiring 100 security professionals or anything like that. We're hiring top tier talent to lead partners, to lead some junior members, to develop junior members and stuff like that. So we have a great mix, which allows us to be, pretty custom about it.
If I may, what I did was I completely overhauled every single job family. And I built levels because the HR team did not have the capacity or the capability to do it. So if I didn't do it myself, I wasn't going to get what I needed. So I went back to base building blocks. Oh, I beg your pardon. Well, I am. Tonight.
Now,
Hi, I'm Jeanette Wayne.
To your point, though, you're absolutely right. You need to make sure you're properly supported, and I think all of us in the room as technology professionals, security professionals, they expect that from us. The services we provide to our customers and our internal teams, they need to be good providers as well.
Got a question over here?
So I'll just add to that. Maybe counter what you were saying.
Hang on.
I can scream.
Not loud enough.
So I recently had an opportunity to hire one of my best developers ever, okay? Her resume was crappy. She was a bad interviewer. So go by references. If I trust him, and if he's saying it, go with that. And right. So she had worked for me before, and she had applied for it, so I knew her. Go with your own network. I won't encourage poaching. That's not right. But still, if they apply to you, if you have put it on the LinkedIn, if they have applied to you, you know them, take it. It helps a lot. And it's just been a week and a half. Guess what? She's already turned the whole company on the toes, making sure that everybody is on it. I just love it.
That's good. Another question? Sprint.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
don't so much have a question, but I mean, all of this is very relevant. It comes up time and time again, every event, everywhere we go in cyber. Check out this nonprofit, Whole Cyber Human Initiative. No, it costs nothing, and I'm a co-founder of it apart from my day job, but literally we have talent that you wouldn't believe everywhere. And what we've done is we've taken them, I mean, we say to ourselves, would we hire them? And if so, yes, right? And we put them through customized training, and then we map them through assessment. So we kind of do the work for you guys to line them to the 50-some job roles related to NIST framework. But check out that nonprofit because we have the talent, and we put them through the training and everything else so that they can be trusted for you guys. So I know it's a different Whole Cyber Human Initiative. It's a different way of looking for talent, but there are many different avenues.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the company name again.
Whole Cyber Human Initiative.
Okay.
Whole Cyber Human Initiative.
Yes, but so I would say define the criteria that you're setting out there. And where is it coming from? Is it coming from your security team or is it coming from HR? And are the two groups communicating? It's a valid question.
I think that's a very great point. Did you have a follow-up? No, we're good. Yeah.
So, believe it or not, I'm not qualified to be an information security professional. First question on the workforce.com. Do you have a bachelor's degree, yes or no? No. Thank you for applying. We'll review your application and everything else. But, so you talk about the filter. So I'm listening to a thing called the smartest man in the room, smartest person in the room. It's a great audio book if you have it. And one of the things it talks about is the irrelevance of certifications because you can pass the test. Or bachelor's degree in basic something that doesn't really relevant as well. However, sorry Robin, you got to disagree. When you have 300 applicants, you have to rely on a filter system. There is absolutely no way. So what this is the question. In all this transparency, how many times do you fill a role based on networking, Xchange, wonderful commentary from people like me, and your previous experiences, versus just going out there into these systems and trying to find the role? My understanding is most cybersecurity professional positions at a medium to high level are filled by networking, not from a provider. And again, I'm sure you're appalled at this, but I truly cannot apply to most positions because
Yeah, I would say of the hiring, a lot of the hiring I did in the last year, 70% were through referrals. I hire one person that was referred. All of a sudden, they have a couple others that are referred. Matter of fact, one of the top guys on our cyber threat intelligence team doesn't have a bachelor's or an associate's, but he's referred, so that gets him in the door to have a conversation. Plus, there's a certain amount of, validity and trust to that, and so you're, because there's always a gamble. I've hired some people that look great on their resume and had to tried for 6-8 months to coach them up and ended up having to coach them out, and it was unfortunate. But there's the gamble that you don't know is, are they really going to be a good fit? You get 30, maybe 60 minutes to try to find out if they're going to be a good fit. So that's where the referral is even stronger than the resume.
Okay.
One other thing. I have found that by referral, the person that was referred, right, so this new employee, they're not only representing themselves, but that entity you already trust, and that goes into that loyalty. It's no more 20-year pension plan. It's 1-year flips and everything. So by that referral, the other side of it is, I've experienced where that person is really going to be engaged because of the referrer, and they know that person and they don't want to disappoint. Is that something you feel as well?
I would just say that most of the people that have on my team that have referred, they know that they're sticking their neck out there, and they're not going to refer someone that is not going to be someone that they wouldn't have work on their team.
Yeah. I think we just have one more question and then we're going to wrap up.
It's not about a question. We talked about a lot about hiring a talent, right? And I see there is a lot of disconnect between academy and the industry. I work as a professor for a community college in Dallas and Colin. We have designed a curriculum that what is needed today for a cyber in terms of it. Most of our students, I personally meet 400 students in a year. Most of our student is not a full-time student, and they work for some IT and they wanted to switch the career. And I highly recommend, and I was talking to a couple of CISO, and we are trying to identify the open position and train them. So I highly recommend have a partnership with your academic, tell that what you are looking for it, and the proposer can identify the best candidate and give you. So we have a 40 plus faculty, and we know when we go and talk to the classroom, we know what they aspire. There is another myth. I work for continuous education, and due to high demand in cyber, if I come and enroll on a cyber security certification, I'm going to land up onto that. And they also convert their whole experience into cyber. Maybe I work for some IT 4 years. Once I have the cyber security, and I convert all the things. So there could be a strong partnership from academic and industry where some of the things can be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So wonderful conversation, and we've covered a myriad of things. Panel, do you want to offer any last words of wisdom, advice? We'll go one by one. Mike?
I
This mic.
Here.
That,
I don't know if we need a mic anymore anyway. We're all just.
Yeah.
I mean, the advice that I would give is a lot of what we just discussed, is invest in your people, get the best out of them, all the things that we've been saying this entire time. But I did want to address one thing you said. You hit a little bit of a hot button for me, which is a good thing. I haven't hired for a college degree. I can't even tell you when. I mean, the hell with that. There's value in a college degree, absolutely 100%. But when you think about people, the stuff they bring to the table from, just their life experiences, the attitude, the drive, that's what we're all hungry for. The piece of paper is definitely great, but it's not the defining thing that allows me to hire for our organization. And I've taken it off every single job description that I put out there since I don't even know when, early 2000s, late 90s, whatever.
Yeah, I would just say, obviously the portion of the topic that got the most questions was about recruitment and talent and stuff like that. And I would say the flip side, and I think everybody's been kind of hitting on this a little bit, is the retention, right? So again, it's about fostering, and most of you guys know this already, it's about fostering a great environment. So if you get team members that come on board, are you taking a vested interest in their career? Are you helping them expand their skills? How are you helping them expand their skills? Whether it's shadowing other people, whether it's providing some training, whatever it might be. And a lot of times people have like awards programs and things like that, but I've learned a long time ago, just saying, hey, you're doing a great job, just saying thank you, that's free. That doesn't cost you a dime, and people feel good about that. So that's key. I think as a leader, also providing clear guidance and direction is huge. You'd be surprised how many people are just eat that up because they haven't had that from a leader before. And then if you're building out a team with a lot of new people, it's very important also to emphasize trust, and how if you don't have trust, how that's going to hurt the efficiency of the organization, team, and stuff like that. So a term that it's been reiterated over the last year through our leadership that I've really liked is assume positive intent. And so that's been really key with my team as well, is kind of echoing that as well. So it's about retention.
Thank you. Just to add to that is the trust. Absolutely, you got to get your team's trust. They got to trust you as a leader. They got to trust that you got their back, and they got to know that it's okay to fail, because we're all going to fail. I tell my team up front, if you don't fail at least once, you're not working, right? So it's okay. I know you're trying your best to get something done, and it didn't work. Let's figure out what will work. Let's go. And talk to them, congratulate them, celebrate the victories. Yes, thank them, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And man, I've had team members go like, "Oh no, you don't have to thank me. That's my job." Like, no, you don't understand. Yes, I do. I not only thank you, but I appreciate you showing up every day and doing your best. Because there was nothing on the job app that said you had to come in and do your best. Obviously, I expect it, but you have to care enough to do it. And so you give them the expectations, reward them, thank them, appreciate them, and ask them, what can I do for you? What can I do to make your job better? Because ultimately, you're making my job better and easier.
Well, that is fantastic. And before I turn it over to Robin, I'll just end with, I think we spent so much time on people because we're very passionate about them. And And I strongly believe that relationships are what will sustain us. Clearly, that's what sustained us in these past couple of years, and it'll continue to carry us through. So I really enjoyed having you as a panel. Thank you. And Robin, we'll turn it back over to you.
Real quick, if you don't mind, I wanted to say that at different times in my career, I've been like an individual contributor and I've been a leader, and I think your career is cyclical, or like a jungle gym, right? Maybe. Oh. But what I would say is that what I've learned is that it is way more hard to be a leader because you have your job and you have your other job. And I think your other job, which is building people and building teams and growing cybersecurity professionals, is by far the hardest thing. Like, I can do a strategy and a roadmap all day long, but the 50% of my work time that I really need to be dedicating to building my team is really hard. And so I would just encourage all of you guys to remember that while you're hiring and as you're building your teams, that you shouldn't expect people to hit the ground running, that it is your job to bring them up. And that's how we solve the workforce crisis that we're under and are under-resourcing. So that's all I have to say about that, said Forrest.
I only expect consultants to hit the ground running.
Okay. Let me take that
all the mics.
Okay.